Welcome to my latest leadership tip. I have been doing quite a lot of work recently with people who are having to present to reasonable amounts of people, 10, 20 people in a room, and often very senior people. And what that means is whereas they would normally be very confident in a one-to-one setting, as soon as they get into a larger setting or people where people are more senior, they can start to get nervous. They can start to not think quite as straight, and it's easier for them to start freezing or getting nervous or losing track. So what we want to do is to maintain control, stay positive towards my agenda and keep on my agenda and not get pulled off my agenda by other distractions. So that's what this tip is about, and it's something we can learn from actors and comedians. And it's about improvisation. Now, there are websites out there that give you 9 rules for improv. I think there's only one that you really need to worry about. And there's only really one way of implementing that you need to think about. So I'm going to give those to you in a minute. But before I go further, I'd like to give you a metaphor from martial arts. If you think about hard fist martial arts, like karate, when someone makes a strike, then you block that strike, probably with equal or maybe even more force, but that's how the combat will continue. In soft fist martial arts like Tai Chi and Aikido, what you're doing is accepting the energy of your opponent and using that to your advantage. So when you see many Chinese in the park practicing Tai Chi, there's a nice movement near the beginning of the form, which is you're gently moving your arms across your body and you twist your arms and you drop your weight. Now that looks like a nice gentle move in the Tai Chi form. But in martial terms, it's a very powerful move because what you're actually doing is accepting a punch from your opponent and you're dropping your weight and dislocating their arm from their shoulder. So what looks like a nice gentle move is because you've been very present in your practice in this form, you can dislocate your opponent's arm. So improv is a bit like that. If you want to be in charge of this room and you don't want to lose control, you want to use anything you may perceive as an attack to your advantage. And you do that by using improv. And I would like to move away from sort of the martial metaphor, but every time I have a coaching session, it's an improv session because I do not know what people are going to present to me. Something may have happened between the last session. I may be presented with something I have got not a clue about. But if I use improv, I maintain control, I maintain positivity, and I can continue with the session, no problem at all. So the one rule we need to consider in improv is you always have to accept the offer. Some people call that you never block, but you always have to accept the offer. And the way you do that is by saying yes and, not necessarily out loud, but in your head. So if someone were to say to me, look, there's 3 pigs flying across the sky and they're blue. Well, if I'm in normal mode, I would think, well, no, pigs can't fly, and they're pink, not blue. So I would immediately be blocking that. I wouldn't be accepting the offer. But if I'm saying yes and in my head, I say yes and, you know what? That third one's carrying a Diamante handbag. I wonder where they got that from. So whomever is in the improv dialogue with me would have to then respond. I've maintained control. I'm still unflappable. So in business terms, someone may say, you know what? This is no more than a 3-month project. I could get into an argument with them and say hard fists, and I say, no, this needs 6 months. But if I say yes and in my head, I'm saying, and I may say yes and out loud, yes and from prior experience, we know we always overestimate on these projects our capability. We will have errors. If we want to guarantee a result in here, we need to build a buffer in, and I'd recommend 6 months. What do you others think? So I've moved things on, I've stayed on my agenda, and I've maintained positivity and control. So by playing yes and in your head, you really, really maintain control, you maintain positivity. And this is something you can practice with your friends, you can practice it down the pub and with family engagements, and suddenly you may find that a relative or an individual you struggled with before, you're suddenly having better conversations with because you're able to play yes and in your head. It doesn't mean to say you have to be a walkover, but it means that you maintain control and you gently move the conversation towards what you want to do. What I would also say is you don't always have to use yes and. Say you may want to really assert yourself, or have a really strong blocking move and assert yourself, but it doesn't mean to say you're not playing yes and. If you're saying yes and in my head, I am going to choose to assert myself here by shutting this down straight away, that's fine. But my default position of yes and means I'm always in positive control. I hope you've enjoyed this leadership tip, and I'll speak to you next time. Cheers, bye bye.